This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman.
This is George Newbern, the voice of Superman.
And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam.
Streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
There is an alien among us. A superior being from a place called Krypton. Deep in the heart of the city, he watches for signs of danger. Ready to act on a moment's notice. His true name is Kal-El. You know him as Superman.
Maybe you ladies haven't heard about me.
The future of Metropolis is in the hands of the Man of Steel. Get up!
Superman.
Get up. He's gonna be busy.
I said get up.
Superman.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 196 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your two hosts, Cal, and with me, our other host, my good brother, my good friend, the man that runs our Twitter account. It's Liam. And Liam, we are smack dab in the middle of our Superman month, and boy oh boy, we have one that may go down in history today when it comes to our Superman the Animated Series review. Welcome to the 196th edition of the DCAU Review.
Yeah, this is an interesting one that we're going to be talking about. As you mentioned, Superman the Animated Series. We are in the last legs of this show, in the sense of both in that we have reviewed almost every episode of it, and even in the production order where this episode that we're talking about today falls. We are, of course, talking about Superman's Pal, a third season episode, a famous, or perhaps maybe more accurately, infamous episode of this series. And I think we both have a fair amount to say about this one. So let's not waste time.
Yeah, let's strap ourselves in here and get to it. Before we do, let's get to our official Imdb synopsis, brought to you by the Pod Tower YouTube channel, which you can head over to youtube.com/thepodtower. Subscribe to there. Not only will you get our entire catalog and new episodes, you also get additional content from other DCAU creators. Liam, this episode originally aired on the Kids WB back on, get this, February the 20th, 1999, meaning a little bit of accidental continuity here as we review this just shy of the 23rd anniversary of this episode's debut.
That's right, and this is for the episode Superman's Pal, which is written by Bob Goodman, directed by Kazumi Mizushima, with music by Dynamic Music Partners, and animation by a pair of studios, Group TAC and Jade Animation. And that synopsis reads as such. Jimmy Olsen finds his life complicated when his friendship with Superman publicly blows out of proportion.
That's it?
That's all we get.
All right, well, short and sweet, to the point. Not terrible. Maybe the best thing that we'll have to say all episode here. Let me just say, before we get into the actual breakdown here of this plot, I have a lot of respect for Mr. Bob Goodman. He wrote the episode last week that we talked about. Obviously, co-created Zeta. Wrote on various different DCAU projects. With that said, I feel like we would be remiss not to acknowledge that this has been nominated by Bruce Timm himself, man, one of the people responsible for creating the entire DC animated universe. One of the reasons why this podcast exists. Happy belated birthday, by the way, Mr. Timm. But he has notated on several occasions that this episode ranks in the top 5 worst DCAU episodes he was ever responsible for or partially responsible for, and even issued, as you forwarded this week on on one of the old cartoon forums, a public apology for this episode.
Yes, that is right. So just know that we are in quite rarefied air when we start talking about this. This is we'll see once we get to our scores, but people might know of a certain jar that this episode is headed to.
That is correct. So I guess we can get into our plot here, Liam. We open up here with this episode, and we're introduced to a new intern at the Daily Planet, working alongside Lois, doing her very best to get on every last one of Lois's nerves with her jingle jangling, as she's got a nose ring and lots of jewelry. That's how you can tell she's a rebel. She's she's got a pixie haircut and all of this extra jewelry, and boy, is she just driving Lois mad. And from off screen, we are reintroduced to, of course, Jimmy Olsen, also known as the horniest man in all of Metropolis, as he is just longingly staring at the new intern. And Clark very quickly decides that, hey, he's going to try to be Jimmy's wingman and encourage him to go over there and make a move. We learn that he's already attempted to make not one but two moves, because Jimmy is just the type of guy that won't take no for an answer.
The new intern's something, huh?
Who, Tina? Too cool for me.
Excuse me?
Well, look at her. She's gorgeous. She gets to hang out with the famous Lois Lane all day. Me, I'm just a nobody.
You're selling yourself short. Ask her out.
I already tried, twice. First time she said her cat was sick.
And the second?
She told me to buzz off.
She's learning from Lois already.
He decides that he's just not good enough for her. He's too schlubby of a loser, and she's not interested in dating him. So this, of course, as they're sitting there, we learn that just outside the Daily Planet there is a police pursuit that is happening. And in hot pursuit of this chase is the true villain of this episode, I believe, that being Angela Chen, who the sole reason for why this whole episode exists, I guess, because not only is she responsible later on for leading with the media narrative that's Jimmy is Superman's pal, but in this case, her interest in getting the best angle in a story causes her to encourage her helicopter pilot to get closer to the action, which in turn causes this ricochet effect on another pilot's helicopter, which forces this crash, and Superman has to quickly speed into action and save not only a helicopter from crashing after he's just stopped this police pursuit of this runaway vehicle, and then on top of it, a bridge also starts to collapse for reasons. And so shortly thereafter, Angela Chen decides that she needs more of a hot story and begins attempts to interview Superman, but instead is only able to get some comments from Jimmy Olsen. And well, she's off to the races with those comments in the way that only the media can do. And that's spin it in a way that is a little bit misleading, I'd say.
How's he doing?
I think he's all right. Paramedics are on their way.
Got time for a statement, Superman?
You wouldn't want it. Thanks for your help, Jimmy.
Cut. Hey, Olsen, you're friends with Superman, right? Want to do an interview?
I don't think I'd be real comfortable with that.
Why not? Camera shy?
No, but it's not like I'd call us pals or anything.
Well, you know him, right?
Yeah.
That's good enough for me. So how would you characterize your friendship with Superman?
Real comfortable. I'd call us pals.
There you have it. Superman has a pal. My investigative team has uncovered link after link between the Man of Steel and James Olsen Jr., Jimmy to his friends. According to our research, you single-handedly saved Superman's skin from both the Parasite and Luminous. Plus, we're told you went undercover at his request to crack Intergang's connection to Apocalypse. Is all of this true?
Yeah.
What? Hold it right there! First of all, Superman saved us from Luminous, not the other way around. And second, what am I, chopped liver?
Well, spin is like a very generous term. she lies, and like this is Project Veritas stuff. Like this is this is like she doctors footage and straight up lies about what Jimmy Olsen told her. She asked him a series of questions. He completely downplays that he that he helps Superman, or he's somehow part of like a Superman's crime fighting team, or that he has saved Superman's life on 5 or 6 occasions. He downplays all of that. And then she literally doctors footage to pretend that he said something else. Like this is a little beyond spin. That's just lying.
Yes. It's definitely misleading the viewers just for a hot take. Something you would never see any media outlet ever do.
Never.
Like never would you see a media outlet lead with a story just for the sake of getting attention. But yeah, shortly thereafter, unfortunately, Jimmy realizes that he's become a little bit popular because of it. And of course, because the episode has to happen, Jimmy starts to sort of revel in the fact that he's now known as Superman's pal.
Yeah. So his reveling, though, is like, I don't feel like Jimmy is like, yes, he doesn't, I guess, immediately try to get Angela to take the story back, but like he has a moment where, yes, Tina, the intern, is a little bit more interested in him and asks him out after she hears on the news that he is Superman's pal. And then he gets like a free dinner, and somebody asks him to like sign an autograph for him. But it's not like he's doing anything like really lascivious with the...
It's all in the name of his horniness. He's
sure.
To spell it out, he's trying to get laid. He's trying to use it to get laid.
Right. And like he's excited that the girl he likes is more interested in him. And so he's kind of playing up that, yeah, okay, well maybe won't be so bad. And yeah, you see a little, like I said, a little thing of him signing autographs, and a little later they're leaving a restaurant with, after going on their date, and then the restaurant owner lets him know that they picked up the tab for him in exchange for, hey, next time you come, Jimmy, bring your pal Superman. And everything's great, and Jimmy's feeling like he's on cloud 9, and then he wanders down a dark alley, and a group of nondescript hoodlums decide to murder him because he's friends with Superman.
Oh, watch it, idiot!
Whoa, sorry.
Wait a second. You're Superman's twerp, ain't you?
Not exact.
This is perfect. Superman put my best buddy in the slammer. Now I'm gonna put his buddy in the morgue.
And so Tina calls out to Superman, and thankfully, I guess he was within. I don't really ever feel like we ever get a sense of how good Superman's hearing is in, like, obviously we know he has super hearing, but we don't in this series, at least. Like in other versions of Superman, you get the feeling he can hear like every sound on Earth. And I don't necessarily get that sense here, but he is able to hear Tina calling out for help as he arrives to scare the thugs off. So Jimmy at this point is beginning to feel like maybe it's not such a great thing to be publicly known as Superman's best friend, as we get a montage, maybe the only like actual narrative highlight of this episode.
Agreed.
Which is where he's just like he gets like more and more depressed and annoyed as just a parade of people keep coming up to him and trying to ask him to get Superman to come to their kid's birthday or come to a charity event or
become a spokesperson for a car. Yeah, become a spokesperson.
So that's probably the narrative highlight of the episode. Yes. And then finally, as Jimmy is leaving a restaurant after the chef at the restaurant is demanding Jimmy get Superman to come beat up his neighbor for him, Jimmy is running away from it's Beatlemania all of a sudden, and he's running away from a group of impressionable young women. Surprisingly, given Jimmy's status as the horniest man in the DCAU. But yes, as he's running away, Tina shows up in a car just in time and drives him away and says she knows of a place that they can hide out and that there's someone she wants Jimmy to meet, which is here at the end of the second act of this episode. We finally understand like what any of this has been leading to or been about, or why what is this? And it is in fact that Tina brings Jimmy to a junkyard to meet her friend, in fact more than friend as we find out, who is none other than the returning villain of the episode. Finally, not the true villain, as you mentioned, that's Angela Chen, but the super villain who shows up in this episode is in fact Metallo.
Yeah, he's back. Wouldn't you know? And man, what a I
might have really fallen here, man. Like
truly,
from dealing with like Lex Luthor and corporate sabotage to, he's last time we saw him chronologically at least was in Heavy Metal. He's working with Intergang and fighting off not only Superman but Steel at the same time. And here we see him again. He's hanging out in a junkyard in a weird turtleneck.
with like the goth girl, or like the 90s version of the cool girl.
The punk girl.
Yeah. So yeah, how the mighty have fallen. The best part though is that Metallo is absolutely just bewildered as to why she brought Jimmy Olsen to the junkyard. I bought. I was like, Metallo is not on board with this because as he reveals, his desire, which makes a whole hell of a lot more sense, was that they bring Lois Lane, and that would attract Superman. But as you mentioned, Tina is convinced at this point, based on their interaction the night before, that Superman will show up to save Jimmy. So they decide to put Jimmy in some danger because she's had about enough of him. Jimmy tries to escape, and it goes to get in the car. It's not a push start model here from 1999. He doesn't have the keys, so of course they're at a junkyard for good reason. The car is picked up by the magnetic lift and dropped into the car crusher thing that all junkyards I guess have, and he's immediately placed in peril, but not killed just yet anyway.
It really makes you think, what did he do to her on that date that they had? because Metallo has to be like, ease up, we're not trying to kill him yet, and she's like, you don't understand. You don't understand what it was like. Like, what did Jimmy do to her?
Oh no. Yeah, that's let your minds run wild. So at this point, Tina decides that she's going to figure out how to get Lois there, and in a way then get Superman there. So she calls up Lois saying that she's been kidnapped. Lois, being the only smart character I feel like in this entire episode, phones the police instead of showing up on her own. Phones the police, and they say to sit tight and kind of let things go. Of course, Clark overhears this with his super sight. I'm not sure. Didn't quite find the math in that, but he used they clearly zoom in on his eyes, and he lowers his glasses as he's using his supervision to listen to the conversation. But he hears
using
it
both, right? He's using the X-ray to see through a window.
Oh, right. Yeah, didn't quite get that.
See into Perry's office where Lois is, and then he's also listening with his super hearing.
So he rushes out, of course, and lands there. And just as he arrives, Jimmy is attempting to warn him that it's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap. But of course, not in time, because Metallo comes out. A battle ensues. And luckily for Jimmy, he apparently inherits super strength because he's able to punch his way out of the trunk of a vehicle, a metal vehicle for all that we understand here, punches his way out through the trunk, and brings a tire iron back to the little RV where Tina was, which also holds the controls, I guess, to this machine, this crane. And so he locks her in a closet in an attempt to assist Superman, who is quite frankly getting his behind handed to him at this point by Metallo because he surprised him. Metallo has him dead to rights, but in sort of underneath of this school bus. But Jimmy uses the crane with a magnetic little lift there that, of course, picks up Metallo at that point and sort of rattles him around. Superman is able to at least create some distance, and they drop him into the car crusher thing. And it looks like that's about it. But of course, that can't be it, because this episode can't mercifully end that way. Metallo breaks out, and we get our final little bit here with maybe one of the worst. I don't think science would say that this is possible to happen, but we get the conclusion of the episode in a very Jimmy Olsen saves the day way.
Yes, as it seems like all is lost here. Jimmy fights off Dina, locks her in a closet, and then yes, as it seems like Superman, as Metallo once again has Superman dead to rights. Jimmy notices a pile of batteries, and that they happen to be leaking acid, and so he throws battery acid on Metallo, which is able to sort of melt the the device that holds his kryptonite heart in place. And as a result of the heart falling out of his chest, that sort of spells the end for Metallo as he falls. The large was the bus or whatever he was holding falls on him, and that's kind of the last we see of Metallo here, and also the last we saw of Tina too. As far as we know, she's still still locked in that closet to this day. But yes, we got our little epilogue here as Superman and Jimmy have a little bit of a heart to heart, and Superman decides that he's gonna, give Jimmy a present, and as we find out, it is of course straight out of those original Superman's Pal comic books from the golden and silver age of DC Comics. He gives him the signal watch, which Jimmy can press a button and a special signal will go, a special frequency will go out that only Superman can hear. And so if Jimmy's ever in trouble, now that he's publicly known as Superman's pal, he can call his buddy Superman for backup. So I guess that's like supposed to be the happy ending, is like Superman's not mad at Jimmy for misrepresenting the truth about how often he helps Superman, but
and he gives him a little treat.
And yes, and it's the thing from the comics. Really, that was the end goal here. It was 22 minutes of whatever the heck that was, just so we could get to a point where Superman gives him the watch.
Still kicking yourself?
Why shouldn't I? I messed things up big time.
You lived up to your press, Jimmy. You saved my life again. Here, I made you a thank you gift.
You didn't have to. I mean, you saved my life too. Only like 1,000,000 times.
It's not just a watch. This button emits a hypersonic signal. If I'm anywhere in the city, I'll hear it and I'll come. I figured you might need it, now that everyone knows we're friends. Just don't wear it out.
Superman, a watchmaker. Little did we know. We learned.
Yeah, is the benign Fortress of Solitude Brainiac make that, or like is Superman?
He said he made it. He says I made this for you.
Yeah, I guess Superman.
Unless Superman's a liar, he fastened. Right. I see him meticulously putting that watch together, late hours at the Fortress of Solitude. Using his supervision to put every one of those cranks and nooks and crannies together to make that watch work.
Well, there you go. But yeah, that's where our episode wraps up. So this is bad in a few different ways. One, because it's not very good just from a story perspective. It's not that interesting of a story. The execution, I think, is really boring, and then there's like a comedic middle part which is kind of funny, but overall, and then our big action-packed finale is Superman fights Metallo in a junkyard. And we'll get to visuals in a second. The visual component of this is another reason I think the story was not being helped out by the visuals, but we'll get to that in a moment. But I really, really didn't enjoy this at all. And so I gave plot a 0 out of 10.
Oh my goodness. We're starting out with zeros this week.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Well, I did not go that low. I don't know. Is this worthy of the disagreement alarm? I gave it a 2. I gave it a 2 out of 10.
I think within 3 points. I don't think we need to break out the alarm just yet. But
yeah, I think the only redeeming factor out of this is that horny Jimmy Olsen gets his comeuppance, and finally women fight back against him. And he kind of gets what's coming to him for that. But other than that, yeah, it's sad that this is the last time that we see Metallo. It's sad that he was sort of an afterthought as the villain for the episode. It felt like you could have just plug and played any person here, and I don't know why. I guess because the stakes were set so unbearably low for the first, as you mentioned, he's not introduced until the tail end of the second act. So the stakes are set so incredibly low based on the fact that, how is Jimmy going to handle this newfound popularity? And, is he going to be dodging guys that are seeking revenge against Superman everywhere he goes, along with these salesmen that are trying to recruit Superman? Like, those don't seem like very high stakes, I guess. So for the fact that they were set so low, and then it just feels like at the end that he's kind of jammed in there as an afterthought. And as you mentioned, having had several great episodes before this, where you really built up the aura of that character, to have him kind of wrapped up here in this way and defeated so very silly by Jimmy Olsen with some battery acid, it feels unjust for this character. So yeah, there's a lot, and I think a lot more is going to come of this when we talk about it in animation and visuals. But I think that the middle part, as you mentioned, like the comedy aspect, that is the best part of the episode. If we're going to focus on the positives, the silver lining of a very, very dark cloud. I think that comedy has notes of like a Paul Dini story. And I think, honestly, that was what I was thinking. If you went entirely goofy and zany Paul Dini style comedy from start to finish, I think that it would have been maybe a little bit less goofy, but that whole third act feels incredibly like the comedy is completely stripped away from it. Yeah. Which makes it feel and there's not much comedy in the first act. It's kind of all in that middle act.
Yeah, I think pacing is part of that. The lack of comedic elements in the later part of the episode. I also think, speaking of Metallo, like I feel like you needed a villain that lends itself more to the ridiculousness and the comedy of the story. Like this would be a good spot for Calabac, honestly. Like I don't know how you get to Tina dating Calabac, but like everything else, I was like, it like you just need someone that's like really could be like really silly and really played for laughs in the Superman Rogues Gallery. And I was like, yeah, this Calabac could have worked. Like like
or Granny Goodness for that matter.
Yes, any of like the sillier New Gods characters, or I'm sure there's other a Mixie Spitlick. Maybe he wouldn't necessarily really care about Superman having a pal, or maybe he would. Maybe he'd get jealous because Superman seemingly likes to spend time with Jimmy and doesn't like to spend time with him, or something. Or Bizarro, even like somebody. Again, I don't know how you get the Tina character involved. You could just get rid of her. She's not that interesting.
Right. She's never heard from again. It wasn't that she wasn't that important, clearly.
So I think just and that's the other thing too. Or if the third act, instead of Jimmy being lured to a junkyard, if it was like if Metallo just like showed up at the Daily Planet, right, and just started wrecking shop there, and then it's like, oh, Jimmy, not doing more to quash this story has now put all of his friends in danger, or something like that. And like there's a little bit there, maybe you could have worked something out where he learns more of a lesson at the end. But yeah, as it stands, just bad, man. Like I said, there's some funny elements to it, but yeah, I don't think they leaned hard enough into the comedy to really embrace how low stakes and silly this episode was.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which animation and visuals. And as you mentioned, there were two different animation studios that worked on this. And let me just throw this out there ahead of time. The same animation studio is responsible for A Fish Story, which we have not yet reviewed. That's coming up in the not too distant future, more than likely. Little Big Head Man, which we've also not reviewed. Bizarro and Mixia Spitlick combo. They also one of them was responsible for The Terrible Trio, and if you're not, I think if you're not so, or no, What Is Reality? I think also in Batman the Animated Series, but maybe most infamously, both of these animation studios combined to work on the all-time Dollar in the Bad episode jar, Unity. So that kind of gives you an idea if you haven't seen this episode in a while. And if you haven't seen this episode in a while and you haven't listened to our review of Unity, you can check out that in the archives at DCAUreview.com. But let's just say, spoiler alert, it ranks as one of the worst episodes we have ever reviewed here on the show. And Animation and Visuals, I believe, was like a 2 and a 1 from us on that episode or something like that, or 2 and a 4. It's single digits, low single digits on those. So let me just say that the first thing that I noticed, character models are way off. Everybody's way too round. Everybody's way too round. Everybody has a rounded chin, rounded head, rounded hair. It's
strange proportions.
Yes, it's not good. That was the first thing that I noticed. It reminds me a little bit more of ironically, like the first shot of Superman. I was like, or of Clark Kent rather. I was like, that looks more like the Fleischer Superman Clark Kent than it does our Clark Kent. He's much rounder and just not that square jawed Bruce Timm, Jack Kirby designed, influenced character model. So every character model in here is off. There are a lot of inconsistencies with some of the models. Jimmy Olsen, they can't decide what color his eyebrows are. Sometimes they're black, sometimes they're orange. Sometimes his eyes appear, his eyes appear without color in the irises, and other times they disappear completely. There's a lot of jump cuts in this also, like weird editing. Did you notice that?
Yeah, so I don't know if I blame that more on this. So the director of this episode, this is the only episode of any of the DCAU shows he directed, Kazumi Mizushima. He was he did some other directing for a lot of Eastern animation. He does have a fair amount of Western animation credits to his name, but they're for things like the G.I. Joe cartoon and
that's exactly what I thought
cartoon.
This felt like. That's exactly what I thought this felt like.
There's odd, and yeah, to your point about like weird cuts and things not really lining up. Like there's a shot at one point in the final fight where Metallo hits Superman with his kryptonite, and Superman's like falling backwards, and all of a sudden it cuts to like a wide shot, and Superman's like rolling on his side, and it just didn't match at all. There's also a point. It's in that opening scene where when Angela comes up to try to interview Superman and she's talking to him and Jimmy, like Angela is speaking and Superman's mouth is opening and closing.
I saw that, yes.
And I don't know if it's supposed to be like he's like trying to they're trying to like that he's grimacing or he's trying to speak, but Angela's not letting him. Like I couldn't figure out what was happening there. As you already mentioned, like the weird just everybody's off model for the whole episode. The sequence, which as we mentioned is maybe the highlight of the episode, when Jimmy's being accosted by all these different people, there's a bunch of him running, and that I would blame more definitely on the animation side than the direction side, in that he's like the running is very stiff and his arms are like weirdly down at his sides while he's running. Like that's the other thing too, is just there's a big lack of fluidity in the animation as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things the first thing that I noticed, and I rewound it, and I'm like, am I missing something here? That first scene with the helicopters crashing, Superman catches the helicopter sort of in his lap, sort of at his chest with his arms wrapped around the front of the helicopter. And there's this quick jump cut. And then all of a sudden he's lifting it from behind. Like he has his arms behind him with it behind him on his back. And it was like, well, how did that happen? We just saw it literally a nanosecond ago, and he had it catching it like like he was hugging it, and now he's got his arms behind his back holding it. There was a lot of that, and it's funny that you said G.I. Joe, because that's exactly what it reminded me of, that or those Marvel cartoons from the 90s, where it felt like, the directors of those shows a lot of times had, if they were static on one image for too long, that maybe they were going to lose the audience's attention or something. Like it was almost like there was an ADD problem. You get a split second and then another split second, and then we cut to this and then we cut to that. And it was all of this happening. It was very, very, very strange. And that was something that happened throughout the entirety of the episode. And then there's just inconsistencies and things showing up. There's the part where Superman, after he overhears Lois explaining to Perry White, who is very round in this episode, after she explains to him what's going on, and Superman rushes out the window, and she kind of has to hold down her skirt. Not only do her hands go through her skirt, but she gets like the very Eastern anime sort of eyes, and then like the little squiggles on her cheeks, sort of like blushing almost. I was like, that looks like a shot from Pokemon or something like that. That's not a DCAU. That's not DCAU. It's fine in the context of being in an Eastern animated anime, but that's not what this is.
Yeah. And the only other thing I really have to mention, beyond just echoing almost everything you said for visuals and animation, is there's a lot of like strange framing, which I would assume is on the part of the director and the storyboard artists for this episode, which is there's like a lot of wide shots where it'll be like a really zoomed out look, and you'll have like the animated character in frame just kind of like standing there and talking, or maybe they're walking a little bit, and then you just kind of you're just zoomed out really far into the background. It's like there's very little like close-ups in this, and I don't know if that was just like a weird stylistic choice made by this particular director or this particular animation sequence, and maybe it would be more interesting if they were in like some like tropical rainforest and the backgrounds were super intricate and something. Maybe that would be interesting, but they're in like, it's just like a building, or they're in a junkyard, and there's just like these very strange shots. There's like a profile shot of Metallo at one point, and like his head is wrinkled. Like maybe I'm nitpicking here, and it's just like a weird angle to try to animate and draw him. But as he's looking, it's like the hair, like the way his hair looks is very inconsistent as well. And then it's like that final fight is pretty toothless. There's a shot of Superman like trying to lift up a school bus at one point, and it looks like they had one static image of him holding it, and then they just like shake, or maybe like two images that they just kind of cut back, and they just kind of like shake the camera to try to make it look like he's struggling with it. Like shake the camera and move it up and down a little bit, so it looks like he's kind of struggling and it's kind of falling down a little bit, and then he's picking it up. Like just some really just like cheap stuff that I don't feel like you saw in these cartoons very often, especially not in this era. The Kids WB era, you just didn't really see things like that with this. And again, whether or not that's exactly who to blame for stuff like that, for those sort of things, I would think that falls more on the animation studios. Maybe what they're used to doing. As you said, they did not do a ton of episodes of the series or any of the DCAU series, but most of them are not highly lauded for their animation. But yeah, it's just a weird mix of like really everybody's off model, and then on top of it you have really stiff animation, and then I thought were just some really strange direction choices as far as the way shots were framed, that honestly I think called more attention to how weird everyone looked, because you're constantly looking at their entire bodies. And
yeah, I think that's all fair and all accurate, based on the fact that we independently both made those observations of random things. I wholeheartedly agree. And I have to wonder, is this during the time when the normal, like Coco was doing, or TMS, they were doing both this and Batman the Animated, or the new Batman Adventures, and starting Batman Beyond? Like, is this like when all three of those things sort of overlap?
Yeah, I think this is like the end of the 99, right? So this is definitely around that time. I mean, Beyond would have definitely been in at least pre-production by then, which is maybe why. So your directors, your regular storyboard artists and such are probably being pulled every which way among all these different shows. And then yes, you're still wrapping up Batman and Superman while doing all this production work for Beyond at the same time. So yeah, that could very well be part of it, because yeah, this really feels like this isn't like your C or D. This is like your D or F team. This isn't like your A. It's not your A team. It's not your B team. Like we're way down the list of people. Like we said, this is Mr. Mizushima's only directing credit in the DCAU, and like I said, I'm sure I'd be interested to see some of the Eastern animation that he worked on, because I would bet that he may be more suited for that. Or again, like I said, his other Western animation credits were for things like the Alf cartoon and G.I. Joe and things like that. So I just don't think he was perhaps suited to do this more modern style. And especially just, I think overall, when you think of Warner Brothers animation, especially 90s Warner Brothers animation, it has so much life to it, whether you're watching Batman or Superman or Tiny Toons or Freakazoid or something. Like, it's just like there's so much movement, and everything feels so alive when you watch those shows. And this is just weirdly stiff and off model and just unpleasant to look at, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, so I think you can pretty much guess where this is going as far as our scores. There wasn't a lot to enjoy or like as far as this episode was concerned. I really honestly wish I had something pleasant to say, but I don't. I really don't. Maybe Metallo's turtleneck. That was fine. That was a fine addition to that character. No explanation given or needed. But for all of the myriad of issues that we had with this, personally, that I had with this, and just the inconsistencies and the callbacks to animation that is notoriously just not good, does not hold up to today's standard, I gave animation and visuals a 0 out of 10.
And I gave it the exact same score as 0.
Oh my god. So far Liam has 0 points on the board.
Yeah, I promise I have a couple nice things to say about it, because this is something that I think we run into often. If there's an episode we don't like, or if it's an episode other people don't like, I know every episode is somebody's favorite episode, or it's the first episode of the series you saw, so it has a special place in your heart. But like, I remember not liking this one when I was a kid, because I remember, and this was another one that was in pretty heavy rotation on Kids WB back in the day. So I had seen this episode a lot, and when I watched it again, I was like, not only is it bad from like a little kid perspective of it's just kind of a boring, uninteresting story, but also like watching it as an adult, it's also like bad on a technical level. So
right.
it is aged pretty terribly. I'm always hoping for the little engine that could underdog story, and we find some stuff that we really like about an episode that a lot of people don't like. But this is not the case for this one, at least not so far.
Agreed. Let's move on to our next category, Liam, which I'm going to go out on a limb here, actually, and say this might be the highest ranked score of the day, and that is going to be our music. We get plenty of Superman's theme at the beginning here, and some exciting car chase theme. We get a pretty fun musical number that I noticed during the Jimmy Olsen chase montage. There's it's really like, it's not Benny Hill, not quite Benny Hill, but it's like Benny Hill adjacent, like a little jazzed up.
You're right. And also famously, this is a little bit reused music, as this was that particular track was originally used in Joker's Millions.
You're Superman's friend, right?
No, I swear, it isn't me.
I know Superman. He pulled me out of the drink once when my boat sank. Yeah, if it wasn't for Superman, I'd be a goner for sure. Come to think of it, I never got to thank the big lug. Tell you what, if I wrote him a thank you note, you think you could
pass an invitation on to him? My kid's birthday's coming up, and he just loves Superman. Superman this, Superman that. If I wasn't such a secure father, I'd be jealous. Anyway, the little guy'd really appreciate it.
If Big Blue would do an endorsement on one of our TV spots. We're Big Blue Automotive, it's a natural. And don't you worry, you get a finder's fee. I take care of my friends. Frankly, my boy, you have no idea how much it would mean.
To all the little baby seals, if Superman would come to our charity dinner. It's black tie, but he could come as is, of course. So do you think you could show him these pamphlets? It wouldn't take him long to read them. I mean, he is Superman, right? And it would really help raise awareness of the hardship
I have to put up with because of that noisy, stinking neighbor of mine. Now, if Superman was to pop by and lay a few of those super punches into the wall, then that louse would turn down his stereo. Hey, I ain't done talking to yous yet.
Oh, look, it's Superman's friend. Oh, see this here? Oh, you can be my baby. It's me. It's fine. I want it for me. For me, my sister. He's just what we're looking for. So cute. Jimmy, get in.
I've got to get Angela to take back that story.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's a fun piece of trivia. So that's a fine piece. It's enjoyable. There's piano in there. There's some horns. There's Jimmy losing his mind as he's being pursued by this gaggle of girls. And then at the end, we of course get the best part of Metallo being in this episode, and that being the Metallo theme returns, and that returns with a vengeance. We get a pretty long period of the episode here with that theme playing in the background and doing its best as the little engine that could to try and create some sort of tension for that final scene there. So I will say that I think that it was this has to be, for me, the highest ranked score. And I just love that Metallo theme so much. It's so iconic. It's one of the best pieces I think that was written for Superman the Animated Series, and one that you just, as we've mentioned on every other appearance of Metallo, is just something that sticks in your head. It's an iconic piece. It's something that was written so incredibly well, fits that character so perfectly, and does its best to, like I mentioned, raise the tension of the scene and create that sort of panic or agony that your favorite superhero there, Superman, is in peril.
Yeah, no, I think that's the Superman theme and the Metallo theme are probably the best parts of it. Like I said, I did have that note, and that sound, it was a little bit of reused music from Joker's Millions, as mentioned, and then yeah, my only thought is I feel like during the heat of the battle, my favorite part of the Metallo theme is usually where they lay in that string refrain going back and forth, sounding like this, unstoppable force that's just coming after you constantly. And they sort of lay the other music on top of it. But I feel like there's a fair amount in that fight where they're kind of laying out that, the dun, 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 like they're kind of laying out, it's just a couple of notes back and forth. They're kind of laying that, and it's just sort of the horns and the percussion, which is good. But it didn't necessarily have that constant refrain, which is maybe my favorite part of the favorite element of that Metallo theme. That being said, I think it's solid. It's not. I didn't really have anything great to say about the music. Like I said, if anything, maybe I could have used more of the Superman theme or something to jazz it up. But overall, I ended up settling on a 5 out of 10 for music.
That's not bad. I went a little bit higher. I went a 7 out of 10 just because I do love that Metallo theme, and I felt very guilty about giving so many low scores to this episode in some way. And I've given that Metallo theme such high praise. I felt like I would be doing it a shame. It's not its fault that the rest of the episode sucks. So let's move on to our final category for today, Liam, which is going to be our voice acting. Not too many new voices, as far as I know. A lot of returning characters here, but actually not really a huge cast here either. But we do have some returning favorites. Let's talk about today's voice cast.
That's right. So I will just mention some one name we know from other series. Melissa Disney is just one of the random girls, I think, screaming at Jimmy. But we know her. She does a couple different voices in Batman Beyond. She voices not only does the non she doesn't speak words, but she's the voice of Curare, and then I believe also plays Blaze, or one of Terry's one of the girls at Terry's high school. But wanted to mention that, and then I will just mention Larry Cedar is playing the restaurant owner who tells Jimmy to bring Superman next time, and I only mention him because he played Chevy Chase's character Pierce Hawthorne's father on Community. In a pair of episodes, which are very very
one of your favorite shows.
Yes, and that's one of my favorite shows of all time. So give him a shout there. But yeah, other than that, we do have Dina Sherman as Tina. She's fine. Veteran voice actress herself, but it looked like she had done a lot of the English dubs for various anime over the years. So again, she doesn't get a lot to do, but then I feel like they didn't really turn up the villainous side to her once it is revealed that she's working with Metallo. So I don't know if you would blame the actor for that or more the voice direction in that case, but nothing too bad or good, just kind of there. But then yes, we have our returning cast. We have as mentioned briefly, Dana Delaney as Lois, who actually does have like two legitimately funny lines, I think, in this episode. One is at the opening of it when Tina's giving her the files and her bracelets are jingling, and she's just so annoyed at everything this girl is doing. I think she's good there. And then the line as Superman zips out the window behind her and her skirt flies up and all of that, and she tells Perry that maybe she should start wearing pants. I think I thought that was a legitimately pretty funny line.
Yeah, she delivers those very well. That's fine. There's not a lot. Unfortunately, I feel like maybe her having a larger role in this episode would have done more for it, but we don't get that. So
yeah, and there's even a part where she mentions when she hears Angela Chen, Lauren Thomas, Angela Chen's reporting that Jimmy has apparently saved Superman's life on 4 or 5 occasions. That one, it's not true, and two, what the heck am I, chopped liver? Like, I thought she was her being angry that the truth isn't being told, but also a little bit more angry that she's not getting the credit she deserves for being part of the Superman inner circle. I thought was pretty funny as well. So Dana Delaney, a highlight, not surprisingly. But yeah, speaking of other returning characters, we do have Malcolm McDowell returning as you mentioned for the final time as Metallo. And man, I wish he had more to do, because he's good, but he doesn't get much to do here.
I feel like towards the end of the episode, he was sort of classic Metallo, Malcolm McDowell. I feel like that first introduction, and I don't know if it was voice direction, for inexplicably, he seems like he mails it in for that first scene where Jimmy is brought to the RV. And I don't know if it was him trying to convey confusion as Metallo, but it didn't come off like he was acting in the way that we've seen him act, that sort of over the top thespian acting that we're used to. It seemed very calm and reserved, and which almost made me think, and again, I had seen this episode also a lot, but I was like, is there some sort of amnesia plot here that I don't remember that he has come up again? Because we already seen the amnesia, in action figures. Is he have amnesia again? Does he not remember who Jimmy is?
What is this? Why have you brought me him?
No, he's confused, but it felt like he was just sort of mailing it in at times. I will say he turns it up at the end, and his sort of utter confusion as Jimmy hurls battery acid on him and asks him what that was supposed to do was probably his best delivery of the episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, I think he picks it up at the end, but definitely, I think by law of averages, at least, which is high praise to him, that this is obviously his worst performance to date as Metallo. But again, that's I don't blame him. I would blame the material that he was given, as we often say here. But yes, all that's left now is our top two actors. We of course have Tim Daly as Superman, who doesn't get much to do. Like I said, gets a little bit more to do as Clark in the opening. As we mentioned, he's trying to be a good friend and a wingman for Jimmy, trying to get his confidence up. And I do like when after Angela Chen has almost murdered like 30 people in Metropolis and she asks him for a quote and he just tells her, you don't want to hear what I have to say or whatever, and then flies off. I think that's a good Superman moment there. But that I think Tim Daly delivers well. But yeah, the rest of the episode, he doesn't, like I said, he just doesn't get much to do. He's okay in that final scene as he's kind of reassuring Jimmy and telling him about the signal watch that he built for him. But nothing to write home about there. And then of course we have David Kaufman as Jimmy Olsen, without a doubt the most screen time that this character has gotten in the series, and he does as good of a job as one could do, again, given the material. I think there are moments where he's genuinely good and funny across this episode, but again, it's just nobody really gets a lot to do in that third act, even Jimmy at that point. And I feel like the highlights come in that, again, like we talked about in plot, in that kind of comedic middle part of the second act, where he's kind of being accosted by all of these crazy people who want his attention because he knows Superman.
Yeah, I think he's a big bowl of okay, and I think that he the character comes across as sort of like, I'm annoyed at him when he's trying to sort of revel in the glory of being Superman's pal, trying to impress Tina in that one scene. But then you do kind of start to feel bad for him in that comedic sense. And then when he's, unknowingly lured by what he thinks is his punk girlfriend to witness her make out with a supervillain and then nearly kill him in a car crusher, like I do feel a little bit bad for him at that point, and that's based on the performance. And I think that final scene between him and Superman, where he's presented the watch, honestly felt very genuine. It was a nice little bow on the episode, and I think putting a bow on the episode that way, for the both of them was the perfect way to end that. But it's fine. I don't like the character of Jimmy Olsen in Superman the Animated Series, so that leaves me a little bit biased. But that doesn't say anything against his acting at all.
Yeah. So overall, like I said, and this is less on anyone's individual performances and more on just the lack of stuff for them to do. But I settled on a 4 out of 10 for voice acting this week. I went also because I was in a bad mood, if I'm being honest. By the point that I got to where I was scoring our final category here, I'm in a bad mood, and so maybe this would have been a 5 or a 6 on other weeks, because like I said, I do think David Kaufman does a good job, but I think it's easily, like I said, I was really disappointed with Malcolm McDowell not getting much to do because he's so over the top and chews so much scenery in so many in episodes that he's in. And nothing for Tim Daly, or a larger role for Dana Delaney would have helped as well, which again, maybe you can blame more of that on the plot, but I can't go lower than a 0 for my plot score. So there's some splash damage here in the voice acting department.
You can't go lower than 0, he said. Well, I went with a 5 out of 10. I think everybody is perfectly adequate. I think even a better performance and from Mr. McDowell would have brought things up a little bit, but it's just nobody really stood out. Nobody really feels like they're doing their very best other than Mr. Kaufman. Which is okay, but the entirety of the episode resting on his shoulders is not something that I would have liked to have, or that honestly that was warranted for him. He's a fine voice actor. I don't want to put him down. I think that the role that he plays is perfectly fine, but that character leading the entire episode pretty much was unfortunately setting this episode up to fail. Everybody else's voice perfectly adequate. Mr. McDowell sort of not being himself for that first little introduction piece sort of brought my score down a little bit. So just an even 5 there. All right, Liam. Well, that will bring. Whoa. Whoa. Well, if you're not familiar with that sound, that is not the bonus point sound. That is the deduction point sound, or also known as the negative bonus point sound. And there were 2 of them there. So that means that each of us have our own negative bonus point. Liam, I'll start. My negative bonus point goes once again to visuals, because unlike what you said, that you couldn't go lower than 0 with your scores, you actually can if you give a deduction point to the same category. And I'm giving a deduction point to animation and visuals because it was just that unbearable. So all of the things that we said and we didn't like about animation and visuals, I take an additional 1 point away from that. So technically the first negative score for a category in history there, if we were really tallying it up here. But since we can't give negative scores, I'll just take an additional point away. What about you?
Yeah, that's kind of I'm in the same ballpark. My negative point is because this episode's boring and ugly, and and yeah, so that's my bonus point. It's a twofer in the sense that it's just really thought the plot was a letdown for all the reasons we've already talked about, and then it's a bad story. It's not interesting at all, and on top of it, it's very unpleasant. It's unpleasant to watch. It's unpleasant to look at. It's unpleasant to watch this episode. So yeah, there's my negative point as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, at least we had fun talking about it. We didn't really have fun watching it, but we had fun talking about it and fun talking about what we didn't like about it. So really, who really, I think I think, friends we've made along the way.
Yes. I mean, I would just say, and again, if you like this episode, I would like to hear why. Tweet us or leave us a comment on Instagram at DCAU Review. You are not wrong to feel that way. I just this is in rarefied air, as we'll get to when we give our final scores in a moment here, but also just because I love an episode like this because it comes around very rarely. There's plenty of episodes that were like, yeah, that was all right, and there's plenty of episodes that are good or great. Very rare. That's why we have a dollar. We have to put $1 in the jar when we bring them up, because there aren't that many episodes that fall into this rarefied air where we just really didn't like it. Across all of our DCAU shows. So this is a special occasion, and yeah, I think we had a lot of fun in reviewing it, even if it was just a lot of talk about mostly things we didn't like.
All right. Well, before we move on to wrapping this week's episode up, I will say, I guess we need to get to our final scores. So totaling everything up at the end here with my deduction point, I ended up with a 13. Wow. 13 out of 40. What about you?
And I ended up with historically the lowest score I have ever given anything we have ever reviewed. And I'm gonna run out of money, but I'm just gonna name some of our least favorites over the years. Fear of Victory, Eternal Youth, Unity, all of those episodes to me, Moon of the Wolf, all of these episodes
Cat Scratch Fever,
yes. All of those episodes pale in comparison to this, the new king of Turd Mountain, as it were. As I came to a final score between my regular scores and my -1 bonus point, I came to a final score of 8 out of 40.
Kobe. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Well, Liam, that will lead us to it. We have to discuss it. Rewatchability.
The worst part?
On the surface, one might say there is absolutely no reason for this episode to ever be viewed by anyone ever again. However, might I point out, Your Honor, Exhibit A, this concludes, as we've mentioned several times, the Metallo story arc. Never heard from again until we see him again in Justice League. So this is a returning villain. This is what happens to him after his intergang run. He's down on his luck and hanging out with a punk girlfriend.
Like many men in his 40s.
Right.
He ends up living in a terrible house and dating a girl half his age.
Living in an RV. Oh, man. So what say you, Liam? Is there even a hint of a thumb up?
I think it's a 1 thumb up because not only, as you mentioned, it is the finale of Metallo in the series. It's also the Signal Watch comes back. He uses it in other episodes of this series, and it's a plot point in a Justice League Unlimited episode. So man. I think this one, if you're rewatching, this has important moments, that this is part of some important stuff, and it is an episode that also has the comic book tie-in of it being an adaptation of some classic stories where Superman gives him the watch. So yeah, I think it doesn't get a thumb up as far as being a good episode if you're just rewatching Superman, but it definitely gets the thumb up as far as you said, it's a returning villain. It's his last appearance in the series, one of the biggest villains of the series. And it's this Signal Watch, the Signal Watch will return. So I think this gets 1 thumb up for rewatchability, as silly as that sounds.
I can't get over the fact that this is the worst episode that you've ever ranked, and you are making a case for this to be rewatchable.
I just want it to be clear that I
disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. That's the irony. Is
unlike Angela Chen, I am adhering to the objective nature of how we do our rewatchability scoring on this show, which is 1 thumb up. We can get 1 thumb up for it being a good episode of the series or being important to the series, and the other thumb up is if it comes back later in other episodes or in another series. And this kind of qualifies for at least 1 thumb up. So there you go.
I love it. Liam Renner, fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced, TMCR.
All right. Well, yeah, I for all those reasons, I totally agree with you. So, man, I love that. And that just goes to prove, anything can happen here on the DCAU review. Just because we don't like an episode doesn't mean that it's not important to your watch through if you've never watched these or if you're doing a rewatch of all the important episodes. So, love that. All right, Liam. Well, that about wraps us up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As Liam's already mentioned, we love to hear your feedback on this episode. We absolutely, in only the most loving way we do here at the DCAU review, tore this episode apart. But if truly this is an episode that you absolutely love, please give us some feedback. Send us, what is it about this episode that you love? Are there things about this that you do have those sort of nostalgia goggles for that you appreciate? We'd love to hear your thoughts. As we said, we respect everybody's opinion about every episode. And understand that everybody has the right to feel and appreciate and love certain episodes. I read a review of this episode on the Nerdist where this guy was defending this episode and said, there's no way this is the worst episode or any bottom tier episode. So I was like, all right, well, there are people out there that don't think that this episode sucks. So I respect your opinion and I would love to hear it. So tweet us at DCAU review or leave a comment, as Liam said, on Instagram. While you're there, give us a follow on both of those. Don't forget, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, whether it's iTunes or whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Google Podcasts. If the podcast app lets you leave a review, we would much appreciate that. Leave us a 5-star review and a little blurb if it so allows you to give the potential listeners an idea of what they're getting themselves into here. Also, don't forget, if you're looking to support the podcast, you can do that in a couple ways. Other than just subscribing to the podcast or to following us on social media, you can head over to DCAUreview.com, click on the store tab and pick yourself up a piece of merch. You can also check the link at the bottom of the podcast here. There's a link there if you wish to subscribe to the podcast. and donate some of your hard-earned coins to us. We would greatly appreciate that. Or if you're looking to do it the old free 99 way, check out The Pod Tower on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe to us on there and check out some of the videos from us and our friends at Tim Talk and the Watchtower Database. Liam, we have another exciting Superman episode coming up next week. So let's discuss what that will be.
That is right. And we've got another episode of Superman the Animated Series to review next week. And it's got another pair of returning villains. And that being the Everybody Loves a Classic Supervillain team-up. And that's what we've got for you next week as we review Double Dose.
All right. We get a little live wire, a little Parasite action. Excited to review that one. Haven't seen that in a little bit. But yeah, Liam, until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.